You're listening to the Outer Banks This Week podcast, a place for people to hear what's going on up and down the beach and get the truth about what really goes on around the Outer Banks. So, here we go.
Oh, yes, Lexi. Let's go. Here we go. Outer Banks This Week podcast, episode number 45. We're 45 episodes deep, and it is now 2024. Happy New Year to all of you, all of the podcast listeners out there. We appreciate you, and we hope that you have a wonderful 2024. Celebration-wise, I was thinking about that. My celebration is not like everyone else's. You know, a lot of people will sit up and watch the ball drop, and they go out, and they enjoy themselves. Once upon a time, that's what I used to do as well. But for now, I don't do all that stuff like I used to. I got kids, I'm married. Not that changes a whole lot. It does in some effects, but it doesn't change that much. I'm older. I'll be 40 this year in 2024. Yeah, I'm getting older. And I enjoyed just going with my family to Owen's Restaurant. Yes, when they had the buffet at Owen's last night. The recording of this podcast I'm recording right now on New Year's. So, last night I went to Owen's Restaurant. They had a buffet. They had so many fantastic different things. They had oysters, shrimp, the prime rib, ham, black-eyed peas, collard greens. They had an array of things laid out there for the buffet, and it was fantastic. I want to thank Rick and Erica, the new owners of Owen's Restaurant, for having just a fantastic event set up. We all enjoyed it. The food was fantastic. And then I got home and fell asleep. Yeah, I don't think I saw, what time was it? It was probably about 9:30-ish or so when Austin and I looked at each other and it's like, yeah, let's go to bed. We're tired. Of course, we're up early too, so that has something to do with it. But again, that's how I rang in my 2024. It's exactly how I wanted it to go. All right, so new year, new things happening. I want to go ahead and let's just address this elephant in the room, okay? Been getting a lot of messages lately. Text messages, emails, Facebook messages, asking, where's Autumn? Well, Autumn's no longer with the podcast. It sucks, but it is what it is. There you go. Sucks, but it is what it is. All right, recap. So let's recap the New Year's resolution. I know a lot of people, I talked to a bunch of folks that had listened to the podcast, and they were like, man, Justin, New Year's resolutions are so, nobody sticks to them. Nobody does anything in regards to them. They say it, and then they don't do it. That's not 100% true. Let me rewind back to the year 2018. It was about Thanksgiving or so, 2018, and Austin, who was, on the podcast last week with me, he was just turned 4. And I used to be a slave to Philip Morris. Do you know who Philip Morris is? Philip Morris makes Marlboro cigarettes. And I was a Marlboro Red guy. Love me some Marlboro Reds. Even the smell of a Marlboro Red nowadays, it's like, it still smells good. But at the same time, it's like, nah, I got to stop doing this. I knew in my head I needed to stop, but I just couldn't convince myself to stop. I was also somebody that vaped. I had one of those big mods that had the tank that you screw on. You drip the juice in it. You vape it like that, and you could blow those crazy smoke clouds and everything like that. And it was all cool and whatnot. But I remember right after Thanksgiving of 2018, again, Austin, about 4 years old, he comes to me and he's like, Daddy, when I become a grown up, I want to do that too. And that just hit me like a ton of bricks. And because I looked back at him, I said, Austin, Daddy shouldn't be doing this. And right then and there, I was like, you know what? I gotta do something different. I gotta stop. But I wasn't ready in my mind to just stop right then and there. Like I hadn't mentally prepared. I have to mentally prepare for things like that. When I've got a big decision or a big thing coming up, I really got to get my mind right about it. So I'd made my mind up. I was like, you know what? New Year's 2018 into 2019, I'm done. So I'll never forget it. I had a half a pack of cigarettes left, and we had just gotten done eating dinner at Owen's. That's what we do. That's kind of a tradition of ours on New Year's is we go to Owen's Restaurant and would eat New Year's Eve dinner. Just gotten finished. I was giving my brother a ride home, and my brother, who smoked at the time, I handed him the rest of my cigarettes. I'd finished my one cigarette, flicked it out, handed the pack to my brother, and he's like, wow, you're really serious. I said, yeah, you can have these. And I was like, went home. It was probably about, 9 o'clock at night. I grabbed my vape. Now, you think about those vapes, they got the batteries, they got a couple different pieces. So I took my vape and took a couple puffs off of it. And then I went out on my porch and I took one battery There's 2 batteries in it. Nice, but big. I don't even know what kind of batteries they were exactly. But I took the battery and one of them, and I threw it in one patch of woods. I had woods all around my house at that point. One patch of woods got one of the batteries. And then I turned around to the other patch of woods and I launched it as far as I could into the woods on the other side. So I had a battery in 2 different patches of woods, trying to prevent myself from going out and trying to find them and put my tank and everything back together and be able to smoke. So again, doing everything I had to do. And with a little help from Nicoderm CQ and some of the chewing gum, I kicked it. And I haven't had a cigarette since. So I'm 5 years. I think it's 5 years. Yeah. 5 years without a cigarette. So it can be done. If you make your mind up that you're going to do something different and you're going to change the way you're going to do things, it can be done. All right. You just got to put your mind to it. So New Year's resolutions, people are like, oh, they're so dumb. Hashtag New Year, New Me. Well, you can do a New Year, New Me. I did it. I haven't had, like I said, I knock on wood, haven't had a cigarette in 5 years. I don't plan on having another one ever again. So that's just something I was thinking about with the New Year's resolution thing, because some people were like, man, New Year's resolutions, they're not real. They don't work. Nobody sticks to them. Yeah, I stuck to mine. Still stuck to it, too. I was thinking about 2023. I just kind of want to reflect on it for a quick second and all the things that went on in my life as far as, the way 2023 started. Man, it was kind of a tough go of it for me. I stopped doing radio. Some different things had happened to me that I just felt like I was getting dealt blow after blow. Like I kept just getting punched in the face, I felt like, with different things. But then all of a sudden, this came about, the podcast. Okay, with Outer Banks This Week, One Boat, the company. And I'm very thankful that this came about because the idea had been out there, and I had met my boss lady, my boss man, Hannah and Phil. I'd met them through my buddy Mike that owns Carolina Barbecue Company and got to know them, became kind of friends with them. And they were like, hey, look, why don't you come do this? Let's go do this. Let's get you a spot. Let's get this podcast going. And then they offered me a sales job here as well. And everything went right back up for me. So I'm very thankful. This podcast has been a very beneficial thing. It's kept me going. It's been a really fun thing to do with all the events and all the fun places and all the fun people that I've met along the way. Really, really thankful for that. So 2023 in that regard has been really, really good. A lot of other fun stuff. I went to a lot of Braves baseball games. I was really, that was a lot of fun. Also did a lot of just hanging out with the fam, hanging out with my kids, doing things with them. Really enjoyed 2023. After, I'd say things really started, the first part, January, February, and part of March were a little tough for me. But again, right there, like starting around like the April time frame, things really, really picked up for me, and I was glad to do it. So a little reflection on 2023. Started out kind of crappy, but then it, thanks to boss people here over at Outer Banks This Week and One Boat, it's rounded out very well, very well. I'm going to jump into some shout outs real quick. I want to start out with this shout out to Emma Cashion. All right, her husband Ryan. I hope I'm saying their last names the right way. I feel bad when I don't pronounce things the right way, but her husband Ryan emailed in or sent me a message, I believe, on Facebook or whatnot. He showed me posters of Ernest Saves Christmas because I said that's the greatest Christmas movie ever. And something about his wife not being happy about it. Well, she emailed me. She goes, hey, Justin, my husband, Ryan, got a shout out for his Ernest decorations last week. Just wanted to send a follow-up email to give myself a little more credit. My husband didn't mention that not only did I let him name our dog Rimshot, I also let him put Ernest Goes to Camp decor in our half bath. So if you shout this out on the podcast, tell Ryan he's got a pretty good wife for supporting this Ernest obsession. Thank you for giving him something fun to listen to during the week. Justice for Ernest wife, Emma. And she sent me pictures. So there's a picture of Ernest, a signed picture of Ernest, Jim Varney. Looks like on their wall in their bathroom, as well as a framed Ernest Day itinerary, which Ernest Day takes place at Montgomery Bell State Park on June 10th. That's his birthday. That's Jim Varney's birthday every year. Okay, I'm really jealous. Let me say this, Mr. Ryan. I'm very jealous that you have been to Ernest Day. I've wanted to go so many different times. I'm going to try to go this year. I told my wife that the other day when I was reading this email. I read it to her, and she thinks that I'm weird for being obsessed with Ernest. I've read his book, and she just, again, thinks I'm strange for it. But at the same time, like, you're kind of my hero. Like, I'm looking at these pictures right now in my email, and Mr. Ryan, having been to Ernest Day at Montgomery Bell State Park in Tennessee, I want to go. And who knows, maybe I'll just meet you out there. But I wanted to give a shout out to Miss Emma for sending that email to me to remind her husband of how awesome of a wife she is. So, Miss Emma, you are indeed super awesome, because I don't think my wife would let me do that. No, see, I just got a shed over the Christmas holiday. Big shed for me to put my stuff in, and I'm willing to bet if I wanted to decorate my shed, like, that's where my Ernest decorations would go. No, my wife wouldn't let me hang it up in the house. I also want to shout out real quick to there's a couple that visit my brother Dirt at the Lost Colony Waterfront Beer Garden on the Manionaxet Causeway, and we happened to bump into them last night at Owen's Restaurant for New Year's Eve. Didn't get their name. I can't remember their names. He's told me their names, but they listen to the podcast every week. You all, you know who you are. Thank you for listening. Look forward to meeting up with you all at the pub and saying hello and chit-chatting. And who knows, maybe having y'all come in sometime. We'll see. We'll see what the crystal ball holds for 2024. But I just wanted to say hello to them real quick, because, again, there's people that listen all over the place, and I really don't get a chance to say hey to them like I'd like to. And that reminds me, so if you're a listener of the podcast, please send me an email, podcast@outerbanksthisweek.com. And just say, hey, and that you're a listener. And if you have something that you want me to talk about, or something you want me to bring up or to address or whatnot, please feel free to send me that info. Send me something, a little question or whatnot. Podcast@outerbanksthisweek.com. Well, coming up here in just a few moments, I'm going to talk about what you can expect from the podcast in 2024. But let me shout out right now to Randolph and Amanda Sprinkle. They're the owners of Saltbox Cafe in Collington. They keep a tasty array of featured local seafoods, fresh meats and produce. They're open every day except Tuesdays, I believe. Now, I would double check all of this right now. I would go to thesaltboxcafe.com. That's thesaltboxcafe.com to see what their hours of operation are, with it being wintertime, especially now coming into January. I know that they're doing some different tapas nights and things of that nature. I would check online to see what their hours of operation are. thesaltboxcafe.com. I'm going to get up with Amanda real soon, and hopefully we can do an on-site with her at the Saltbox Cafe in Collington. Really looking forward to that. It's something she and I have talked about, and hopefully we can get that pulled together in the near future. All right, that leads us into our next topic. Okay, what you can expect from the podcast in 2024. I try to pour as much into this podcast as I can. I try to give every bit of energy that I can to this podcast while juggling dad life, husband life, work life outside of the podcast, as far as marketing and things with Outer Banks This Week and One Boat. I keep the podcast in mind constantly thinking about what the next thing is. And all I could think about for this week was just kind of give you all an idea of what direction I hope to take the podcast in. So make this like the podcast, the Outer Banks This Week podcast declaration. We're going to have a variety of guests from all over the Outer Banks. That's my goal. Part of my goal is to include as many guests from around the Outer Banks as possible, from Corolla to Ocracoke and all else in between. I believe it's important to give you all a glimpse of these different places and things that are going on up and down the beach. And in order to do that, we need to bring individuals in that are directly involved with these businesses, with these restaurants, with these events. I want to bring all of these individuals in to talk. And, of course, we'll scour the beach. As part of what I'm going to do is be scouring the Outer Banks to find these people, to bring them in, so that way we can express it all to you, the listeners, and you'll know what to do and how to plan your vacation. These are things that we're trying to do, as well as the locals. Don't forget about the locals that listen to this podcast as well. I know you're looking forward to doing different things and being out and about and going and seeing. So again, this isn't just for all the vacationers. This is also for the locals, but I want to bring in a variety of guests from all over the Outer Banks. And that's going to start actually next week. And I'll talk about who that's going to be in just a little while. More on-site recordings for the podcast. So we did a few last year. Went over to Fish Heads, went down to the Wreck Tiki Hut, That's just that's just a couple of the places. Now, I want to go to Corolla more. I want to go to Southern Shores. I want to go to Duck. I want to go to Kitty Hawk. All the different towns. I want to hit every community on the Outer Banks and do a podcast in every spot. Maybe 2 podcasts, 3 podcasts in all these. I'm not going to sit here and put a number on how many podcasts we would do from different places, but I want to hit all the communities, all the different communities of the Outer Banks, and do a podcast there with the people, with the businesses, with the things that are going on. I'm a people person, okay? I have to be with people. I have to be involved with people. I'm a very community-oriented individual. So being on site and doing these recordings of the podcast are very important to me. And it's definitely something, because I want to share. Growing up, I'm not going to sit here and lie. Growing up, I'd be like, these stupid tourists coming in here, blah, 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 blah. I didn't understand how the economics of the Outer Banks worked at that point when I was a kid. You know, when you're a kid, you don't understand how a lot of things work. But now it took me leaving the Outer Banks after high school, going in the Army, living in about 3 different states, and then coming back here to realize that I grew up where people come to vacation, where people come to party. It took me a while to figure that out. Now I want to party with these people. Everywhere I go, I party. All right. If I can't party, I don't want to be there. That's kind of like my life's motto. I want to go and have a good time everywhere I go. If I can't have a good time, I don't want to be there. And I want to have a good time with you. That's how I want things to go with this podcast for 2024. And I said something a few moments ago about more community involvement, events, fundraisers, things that will help drive people to helping people. Let me shout out right now to Hatteras Island. Hatteras Island is one of the most community-oriented places in the world, in my opinion. When somebody has something going on in Hatteras Island, I think about that, the Outer Banks Buddies group that's created down there by a good little handful of folks. When they had their event at the Inn on the Pamlico last, June, the amount of people that poured back into that community event was insane. It's about pairing, now Outer Banks Buddies about pairing adults with kids that need, extra assistance or whatnot. It's a great organization. Down in Hatteras Island, I'm telling you, they pour into the different organizations and foundations and community things like that. I love it so much. They all want to help each other. It is a beautiful thing. I wish all the Outer Banks was like that. All of it. That's what I want to be a part of. That's what I want to bring this podcast to. I want this podcast to have a lot more community involvement, to be a part of the communities of the Outer Banks and be in it and be a part of it and be with it and be with the people. That's my vision for this podcast for 2024. Going to have this variety of guests from all over the Outer Banks, more on-site recordings of the podcast, and a lot more community involvement. Those are the 3 heavy hitters for the podcast for 2024. Is there anything else you think that we need to be doing differently? Is there anything else you feel as if we need to be a part of? If you have something going on the Outer Banks, or you have a question, again, I can't say this stuff enough. I rely on you to help me. I can't be everywhere and look at everything. I try my best, and I have a lot of different people and a lot of different communities here on the Outer Banks that I know that help me with these things. But if there is something that you feel like I need to be doing, send it to me. Podcast at outerbanksthisweek.com. All right, coming up. It took a lot out of me. Coming up, we're going to go through some different events. Got a few heading our way, but I need to shout out right now to my man Ryan Walker and his crew over at Wanchese Off-Road. Wanchese Off-Road, right there in Kill Devil Hills. They're in that, it's like an industrial area behind the Harris Teeter in Kill Devil Hills. I can't thank him enough. Anytime I've needed some extra work or any assistance with my vehicles, Ryan Walker and the crew over at Wanchese Off-Road have stepped up. Yeah, they specialize in diesel performance, lift kits, modifications, different things of that nature, but they will also do some basic vehicle maintenance for you as well. I needed a carrier. I almost want to say carrier bolt. It's a carrier bearing replaced in my drive shaft right before Christmas in my truck. Called up my man, Ryan. I was like, hey, man, look. Can you help me? Ryan's been one of my best friends since we were kids. Love him so much at Wanchese Off-Road. And I said, can you help me out? And he looked under my truck, looked at a couple different things, had a little guy, Grant, a little skinny, wiry dude, crawl under my truck and looked at a couple of things. And he was like, oh, yeah, it's your carrier bearing. We're going to go ahead and replace that. He got it all squared away for me. Again, you can go have him get you squared away as well. You can check him out on Facebook, Instagram, or you can call him at 252-715-0025. It's Juan Cheese Off-Road. All right, let's go through some events. All right, I can't say enough about how you need to support the local high school athletics like basketball, wrestling, things of that nature going on throughout the wintertime. They rely on your dollars to buy new uniforms, to pay the referees, to do a variety of different things for the schools. So I encourage you, if you know of any high school basketball games, wrestling, any high school athletics that are taking place, please go and check them out, whether it be First Flight, Manteo, Hatteras, any of those schools. Check them out. It's guaranteed you're going to have a good time watching the excitement and the energy that is drawn throughout those buildings. So please support the local high school athletics. Something that my buddy Mike Weaver at Carolina Barbecue Company's got rigged up. He's doing this Broncos and barbecue at Carolina Barbecue in Manteo this coming Saturday, January 6th at 11:30 in the morning. So what you're going to do is you're going to come on out, grab a bite to eat. If you have a Ford Bronco, you got to be a Bronco owner, though. Got to have a Ford Bronco, have a meal, then take a ride up to Corolla to drive on the beach to see the wild horses. Hopefully you'll see some horses. More information on the Facebook event, just search Broncos and Barbecue. I know I'm going to try to go hang out with him for a little bit that day. Maybe do a little bit of recording. Who knows? But I know Mike, he's super excited about it. You can call him 252-305-8844 at the restaurant, and he can give you more information as well. But I would go on Facebook. That would be where I would look for the most information. It's all online. Go on Facebook, just search Broncos and Barbecue, and he'll get you all squared away. And it's a good time, but you got to be a Bronco owner. You got to own a Bronco. Now, I don't own a Bronco, but he asked me to come and just kind of participate a little bit. I might end up actually going in the kitchen and helping him cook, truth be told. But it seems like it's going to be a big thing. That's Broncos and Barbecue this coming Saturday, January 6th at 11:30 in the morning is when it's going to start. Trivia night at Lost Colony Waterfront Beer Garden. That's going to be going on Friday night, still going on, starting at 6 o'clock. Here's something that I found. Trick Fly. Trick Fly is going to be playing at the Avalon Pier, on Friday, January 12th at 8 o'clock. Now, they're a cover band from Kitty Hawk. Play rock and roll from the 80s and 90s. They play stuff like Van Halen, Metallica, Pearl Jam, Stone Temple Pilots. Nice. Some country in there. Garth Brooks, Jason Aldean, some Three Doors Down, just to name a few of the different bands that they cover. But they, like I said, 80s and 90s cover band. They're actually a pretty good band. Trick Fly playing at the Avalon Pier in Kill Devil Hills on Friday, January 12th, starting at 8 o'clock. Here's something else. One last thing here. The Blue Zone dinner at NC Coast Grill and Bar in Duck. It's going to be going on Wednesday, January 17th at 6. Now, Blue Zones seems like a fusion of taste and tradition. This is what I'm reading here. Fusion of taste and tradition inspired by the foods consumed at the world's longevity hotspots. A feast that's not just a meal, but a journey to a longer, healthier life. So it seems to me like there's going to be different foods from places that have been in existence. Like we're going to go back to, it sounds like Mediterranean almost. Don't quote me on all of that. I would get with Wes Stepp up at NC Coast and let him tell you more about it. But it seems like it's going to be like those foods that are basic, but have different flavors that you could gravitate to and enjoy. Because if you think about the longevity of life for generations past, people live longer than they do today because of some of the chemicals and preservatives and things that they put in foods that I guess just don't preserve life. I don't know. Like I said, I'm taking a shot in the dark here. I'm just kind of guessing. I would go and check out NC Coast online, on Facebook, on their social media, and on our website at OuterBanksThisWeek.com to get more details on this. I know that's going to be on Wednesday, January 17th at 6. Sounds interesting. So if you're into some healthier lifestyle, healthier eating, and most folks are, here it is, hashtag New Year, New Me. This might be a way to check this out. This might be a way to get started. So keep that in mind. That's the Blue Zone at dinner at NC Coast Grill and Bar in Duck on Wednesday, January 17th at 6 o'clock. That's all I got by way of events. There are other events and other things going on up and down the beach. Those are just a few that I pulled. You can go online, OuterBanksThisWeek.com, to get more details. It's OuterBanksThisWeek.com. outerbanks.com and go to the events tab. I'm on their website right now, and you can scroll down, click on the events, set your destination, the category, the dates to and from, scroll up and down, and find what you're looking for, or see if you see anything that you want to participate in. So keep that in mind. outerbanksthisweek.com, click on the events tab. All right, that's going to really do it for this episode of the podcast. I'm going to try to make this one of the last ones that I do by myself. I know it's a lot more engaging, a lot more entertaining when there's two folks involved having a conversation. So this one, it's hard to kind of get a guest squared away for the week of New Year's. Everybody's kind of scattered about. But next week, Joel Scheingold, I hope I'm saying his last name right, man. Again, I feel like I screw everybody's last names up. From The Rec. You remember when we did the podcast from The Rec back in July? He's going to be our next guest, and we're going to try to cover what we know about events that are going to be going on around the Outer Banks in 2024. He sent me a list of them already. I'm not going to dive into them just yet. I'm going to wait for him to get here, but we're going to be trying to compile a list over the next week or so to put together for you to think about when you're planning your trip here on the Outer Banks, or if you're a local, things to think about that you can do on these specific dates and times and weekends or whatnot. So Joel, that was something he brought up to me, and he's like, hey, man, I would love to come up and let's go through this. I was like, dude, come on with it. Love Joel and Jess down at the Rec, Tiki Hut, and the Snack Shack down there in Hatteras Village, right there by the ferry dock. Fantastic folks, fantastic food, good drinks, everything down there. They're not open right now. The Rec's closed for the season. Snack Shack's still operating on some amended hours, but I look forward to having him here to talk about that stuff. I want to reinforce real quick my declaration for the podcast for 2024 with Joel coming in to talk about those things. I mean, again, a variety of guests from all over the Outer Banks, more on-site recordings for the podcast, and more community involvement. That is my vision. That is my declaration for the podcast for 2024. I declare that these things are going to happen. This is episode 45 in the books of the Outer Banks This Week podcast. We appreciate you for listening. Again, something you want to hear, something you want to have discussed, podcast at outerbanksthisweek.com. All right, we'll have Joel next week. Looking forward to that. It's going to be a good time, guaranteed. And y'all get ready for 2024 because we're going to go on a ride. Let's say, take a walk on the wild side. See ya.
This has been another epic edition of the Outer Banks This Week podcast. Follow us on social media and be sure to listen every Thursday for a new episode.